Welcome back to Black Cat Crypto Club, everybody. My name is Drake. So what's going on with Bitcoin? In just 6 or 7 days, we've gone from 74,000 down to now we are at 62,900 as of recording. So what is going on? Now, if you watched my channel for any amount of time, you probably know what my reaction is to this, but there are some key things that are happening in the news. And so we need to get to all of that. Also, there's some things about the halving that I've talked about the halving on this show a bit before, but there's some things I haven't told you, that I haven't shown you. And there's a lot of workings with the halving that most people, even the people that know about the halving, don't really understand. So we're going to get in all of that today. But before we do, please consider donating a couple bucks over to these animals. This is a small sanctuary, so anything you donate really helps them out. Plus, it brings some positivity into your life, into your day, and it also helps to reduce your tax liability. So do something positive. Go help these guys out. Great cause here. So let's get over to the charts. Now, here you can see Bitcoin. Thursday was when we started this downtrend. And what happened Thursday? We saw PPI inflation numbers come out. CPI came out on Tuesday, right here, and we saw inflation numbers stay fairly even in CPI. There was one metric that saw a slight increase, but we did see a down day that day. And then Thursday, we saw PPI come in a lot hotter than it was estimated that it would be. And that's when we've seen this downtrend. Now, it's key to note that tomorrow, Wednesday, we have an FOMC meeting. The Federal Reserve will be meeting and deciding on rate cuts. Now, nobody is expecting the Fed to cut tomorrow. So that is pretty much out of the cards. If they do cut tomorrow, you can imagine, I mean, Bitcoin will have a major update if that happens. Not likely to happen, but if by some magical way they did, we would see major inflows into Bitcoin. But it's not going to be important whether we have that rate cut, because we're not going to have a rate cut tomorrow. I mean, all things being equal, that's just not going to happen. What will matter is what Jerome Powell says when he comes out of that meeting, and what he says about the inflation numbers, about the Fed's stance on where they see themselves in the coming months, and anything he says about possibilities of rate cuts in May. Because I think a lot of people are still thinking maybe May we might see our first rate cut. So anything like that, positive or negative, what Jerome Powell says will probably move the markets a bit. This kind of thing is not unusual. I've been watching Federal Reserve meetings I haven't missed one in probably 2 years now. And it's like the market gets kind of this pre-FOMC jitter, and they just don't know what to do. And it's just, there's no real news making anything go anyway. It's just this pre-FOMC meeting jitters. And you often see the markets do this before that. Then it happens and the price moves one way or the other, and then we get back to business. So this, guys, isn't a big deal in my opinion. Also, let's just go to show you, since Thursday, we have come down 15%. Okay. Now, we saw that same 15% pretty much in this one day here. So, let's see. Yeah, 15.11% just in that day alone. You can remember it happened in like 5 or 6 hours. We dropped 15%, but then we quickly got back up and we continued on. This 15% feels a lot harder because it's taken 6 days. You know, this has lasted a lot longer. So people are getting worried. It's not a big deal. Again, in these bull runs, we often see 30, sometimes 40% pullbacks. So 15%, not a big deal. But the big guys, the big whales that are buying, the big institutions, they are wanting to shake you out. They want you to sell your Bitcoin so they can buy it up. And it's depressing to watch for me because it is happening. You know, the small guys that I really want to see get an upper hand for once are dropping the ball here. They're getting shaken out and selling into these big buyers. And to illustrate that, we're going to go over to an article from Cointelegraph. This was published just yesterday. It says Bitcoin dumb money sells as whales and sharks add 328,000 Bitcoin in a month. So whales and sharks, guys, are the people with a lot of money and a lot of Bitcoin in their wallets. So we're seeing them buy, and all of the small guys are dumping. So you can just see kind of how much whales are buying here, and it's depressing. I think this graph right here, let's see, Bitcoin supply held by entities with a balance of 10 to 100. So it really is these smaller guys that are just dumping right now while we're just being bought up by these whales, guys. So it's depressing for me to see, but this is happening. So don't get shaken out of your Bitcoin at cheap prices. This, I've said it before, 60,000, 70,000 is cheap, and we are going to find out here very soon what that really is. So with that, let's go over, I really want to bring you guys probably do a live stream tomorrow and bring you guys that FOMC coverage. So make sure to subscribe and turn on that bell notification, because I will try to live stream, if at all possible. We'll be live streaming the FOMC coverage. You can see what Jerome Powell says, and I will have the graph up just to show you guys what he says and how Bitcoin really kind of moves. So make sure to watch for that. Also, guys, when we talk about the halving, okay, we're going to zoom out for a second. I've got all of the halvings marked in green vertical lines. Okay, here is the next halving. This is due to come. This is actually probably supposed to come a little bit earlier now as estimated. I think it's supposed to come the 20th right here. So that's the estimated time for this next halving. We are almost exactly 1 month away. Now I'm going to zoom out and just show you where we are according to this last halving. Okay, we're about right here. And you can see if we zoom in, this was another major crash. This was COVID, so this is going to be a lot worse than what we're seeing right now. But it is interesting. It's right at about the same time in the cycle. Yeah, I mean, this was a 57% drawdown. So huge drawdown there. But it's interesting to note that same part of the cycle we saw a downtrend, and then people start buying into the halving narrative, right? And the thing about the halving, guys, that nobody understands. A lot of the people who have been in it for a long time understand this, but people hear the narrative of the halving and it cuts the cycle or the supply in half, and the money goes up, the number goes up. Well, yes, that is true. But as you can see here, let's just get this in view. So we came up, we had that halving narrative. People are buying. The halving hits, and look, guys, just a dump. This right here on the halving day, we saw 16% dump right on the halving day. It's always a sell the news event short term, because all these people who were buying into this halving narrative, the day happens, the halving happens, and people don't understand it's not an event that happens like that. I mean, it is. We go from mining 900 Bitcoin this cycle will go from 900 Bitcoin a day to 450 a day. But the market does not fill that supply crunch right away. What happens is miners start mining less. Then what they do is they have to decide at what point, what their costs are on mining in this new halving, and what price point makes sense for them to sell. So yes, they stop selling the new Bitcoin that they've been mining, but they've been mining for a while, and they probably continue selling the Bitcoin mining rewards that they've been receiving for a little while. So the selling from miners continues for a small amount of time, but the market doesn't really see that supply crunch for usually several months. If we go here from the halving to when we really see an uptick, I mean, this was 78 days. So this was over 2 months before we really started feeling that supply crunch kick in. Then we had a correction, and off to the races we went. So people don't understand that. Oftentimes we see a sell after the halving, and nothing changes for several months after the halving, and then all of a sudden we get that, the market fills that supply crunch, and it goes way up. So that is what is probably to be expected. If I had to guess, that's probably what we're going to see here. You know, we may be coming down here. We may see an uptick here at the before the halving, and then we'll see another sell-off after the halving. I actually still have a few strings to pull. If we do see a significant sell at the halving, I do plan on buying. So, because then we are just maybe a few months before we feel that supply crunch, and then we are just gonna go absolutely nuts, guys. Look, if I zoom all the way out, okay, we're here. We have all of this to look forward to, and probably more than this. I've talked in previous video how this was kind of hindered, and if we would have just continued without this big news event with China banning mining, we would have had all of this growth just on top of this. So guys, we are still so early. Don't get shaken out. This is not the time to be selling. We are buying right here. Even with these dips, it isn't anything to be afraid of. Now, also, we have some news that is affecting this price right now in the short term. Let's go back over to the browser. We've got Grayscale. Grayscale is the trust that was converted to an ETF, and they kept their rates so high above the other ETFs that we've just seen constant selling from them. But yesterday we saw a record sell of $64 million yesterday. So that's another downward pressure we've seen on the market. I don't understand what Grayscale is even thinking. You know, they had such a great head start on everybody, and they squandered it because they wanted to keep their fees so high. It's ludicrous. I don't know what these guys were even thinking. But that's what it is. Now, when it comes to ETF selling, this 643 million that went out yesterday doesn't necessarily settle in Grayscale ETF sellers' accounts for up to like 1 or 2 days. So even if this $643 million was sold yesterday, even if this is this is customers that are getting out of those high fees and going with a lower fee ETF, it eventually balances out, but it takes a few days for that to settle and for customers to be able to move that money out of Grayscale and into another ETF. So we have a few days until we see those outflows come back in, possibly. There are some people that maybe are just getting out, and there's probably some people that are harvesting losses, and they're getting out, and to harvest that loss legally, they can't buy back into Bitcoin for 30 days. Otherwise, it's a wash trade. So, you know, up to a few days for this to get back in, or at least a few days for this to get back into Bitcoin, and up to like 30 plus days. So yeah, Grayscale, in my opinion, they've messed up. They kind of screwed the markets, and they really screwed themselves. So they're gonna, you know, they're still the biggest ETF as of now, but BlackRock is really coming up on them. BlackRock will flip Grayscale in the next week or two, I would imagine. So there is that. Now, look, this is ETF outflows again. So this was yesterday, right here in the pink. We've got 318.24. You can see all of these, BlackRock, all of the other ETFs were in the positive, but with that massive sell from Grayscale, it did put us into a negative day yesterday, which we haven't seen for quite a while. We did see a negative day on March 1st. And yeah, so this was quite a bit bigger than the negative day we saw on the first as well. So it is a thing, guys. Grayscale, a lot of people are mad at Grayscale now. And it's funny to see that because, back since the beginning of the ETFs, we saw that sell pressure from Grayscale, but all of the people that were reporting on it, all of the influencers and everybody was saying, oh yeah, but everybody's expecting all these outflows from Grayscale. It's fine. It's not really Grayscale's fault. It's just people that have decided to sell Grayscale. And I was always like, it's not Grayscale's fault. That's some BS. It is Grayscale's fault. It's always been Grayscale's fault. They should have been more competitive with their rates. They absolutely shot themselves in the foot, and it caused turmoil in the market. And now, now that the markets are seeing this downturn, everybody's mad at Grayscale and, oh, Grayscale this and that. And it's been Grayscale's fault the entire time. So I don't know, guys. Now, there are some other things we need to consider as well. We've heard from a lot of these ETF analysts as well as the ETF providers like Matt Hogan from Bitwise and Eric Palchunas and James Seifert from Bloomberg that analyze these ETFs. And pretty much everything I've heard so far is, yeah, there's some small institutions coming in right now, but mainly it's, boomers are taking their 401ks and things, and they're finally given this chance in the traditional market to buy Bitcoin. And so this demand that we've seen since January 11th, when ETFs were approved, is mainly driven by small hedge funds and small offices, as well as retail. So the big question is, and all of these ETFs are out on tour talking with big institutions. So the big question is when do we see that wave? And people say it's coming. Matt Hogan and Cathie Wood have talked about how the wirehouses for big institutions to buy these ETFs aren't even turned on yet. So once those are turned on, we're going to see a huge wave of institutional investment, as well as there's something important coming up in December, and that is FASB, the Fair Accounting Standard Board or something. So FASB, the rules for Bitcoin accounting right now, what institutions, publicly traded institutions, have to claim their Bitcoin. They have to put their Bitcoin numbers on their sheets for their investors at the very lowest that Bitcoin has ever been during the entire time they've held. So that, guys, institutions are scared off from buying Bitcoin right now with the accounting rules that are in place, because if they buy, Bitcoin dips a bit, but then shoots up, they have to, on their paperwork for their investors, they have to claim Bitcoin at the very lowest price that it's ever been for them. So investors are very turned off against that. They don't want to explain to their investors, oh, it looks really bad, but it's not, guys. We're actually clear up here. It's a big, major turnoff for investors right now. So December 15th of this year, I believe, FASB, the accounting rules for Bitcoin changes, and it goes to fair accounting, which they can put on their books every quarter. They can put Bitcoin on their books at the fair value, the current value. So once that happens, institutions are going to be able to hold Bitcoin much easier without reporting something completely horrible to their investors. So that is going to be a huge thing. The end of this year, honestly, once these big companies post their third quarter numbers to their investors, I would imagine after the third quarter reporting happens, we're going to see institutions get in because they know this fair accounting is coming. So after they report for that third quarter, they can safely buy Bitcoin and know that they can report it at what the value actually is. It's going to be huge. So the end of this year, I mean, in a month, we're going to have the halving. It's probably going to take a few months for that supply crunch to kick in. Once that does, and once these wirehouses are turned on and the accounting rules changes, it's game over, guys. That is going to be huge. By the end of this year, $60,000, $70,000 Bitcoin, you're going to be wishing you could buy Bitcoin for that amount. So I don't know, guys. Things are looking good. This little blip we're having right now, it's never fun. It's never fun seeing your money go down, right? But this small little guy right here, this is so short term. Scroll out. See what we're doing. This is just from October, guys, right here. And we have gone up, really in the last month. Let's just measure what we've done in the last month and see, because so it would have been February 20th right here. I mean, even to where we're at right now with this dip, we are up 23%. So this small 15% has people worried. Give me a break. In the last month, we've come up, even with this dip, to 23% up. And we're not even to the halving yet, guys. It is going to be ludicrous. If you're selling Bitcoin right now, you are going to regret it. So, yeah, guys. Anyways, that is what I have for you in this video. I am going to be doing another video today. So make sure you subscribe, turn the bell notification on so you don't miss that. I've also got one that I've recorded already. I'm just debating on how and when to release it. It's a fairly big one. I've been contemplating it for a while. So make sure you turn your notifications on for that one. And then I will, if all goes as expected, I will bring you a live stream of tomorrow's FOMC meeting, and we'll kind of analyze that. So yeah, until next time, guys, don't get shaken out. Don't sell your Bitcoin at this point. It is not the time to be selling. I will see you in the next video. Bye.